Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Kristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Chidamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesa Sunyavani Vaschacharisatarini Hare Krishna, Sorry, I'm going to have to take this off. Too many things here. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gnanajana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Hukam Karoti Vachalam Bangam Mangayate Gari Yat Kripat Mahamande Shri Gurum Dinatananu Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharani Nirvishesha Sanyavari Pasachade Shatave Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Kashishwa, could you please tell me to whom I am speaking today?
You're speaking to the Assembly of New York residents, New York
New York
Vasis.
residents.
New York
New York
Vasis.
Vasis.
Mostly we have a group of Russian devotees, but we also welcome everyone who has come today here.
So, are these
We have mixed group.
mixed? It's mixed group.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were thinking that more from the Russian community? would
I'm not
come?
in the control, so.
You know.
Why don't you have a census?
Excuse me?
Why don't you have a census? Who's Russian, who's not? I'm not hear you.
Oh,
If you wanna have it, then have it.
have a census? Is that what you said?
Census, yeah. If you wanna establish that who's American, who's not.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I'm not. You know.
You're from Hungary.
Yeah.
That I know. I was under the impression, the reason why I asked the question is because I was under the impression that it was a special invitation for devotees from the Russian-speaking community. That's what I wanted to clarify that as to who was here from the Russian-speaking community. Not that I was going to speak Russian. But I do know that sometimes the devotees from the Russian-speaking community, in many places, I don't travel a lot in America, but usually devotees from the Russian-speaking community have gatherings amongst themselves. It's, I see it. Many of them, because when they first come here, they don't speak English. Many of the temples have a lot of Indian people there, and they don't connect. And then there's sometimes Russian-speaking devotees who come here and only connect with the Russian-speaking devotees and don't go to the temple. There's a lot of factors. But I don't travel a lot in America, but generally in places where I have visited, I've seen and when I see that, sometimes I try to break down some of the dispositions that there is, and that I don't see a need for that tonight because we have a mixed group. But not only have I seen it in America, I've seen it in Germany, I've seen it in other countries as well. Kashishwar had asked me to speak about community.
It's like, importance of Vaishnava association and, relationship in the community light.
Mm-hmm.
Community development.
Is there because there's a lack of community?
That's because we are focusing, we are trying to
focus on community. And there are obstacles.
Yeah, I mean...
There's always obstacles. If you say there's no obstacles, I won't believe it. And you're going to have to say there's obstacles now, I guess.
I can say only about my own internal obstacles.
Internal obstacles, that's good, that's healthy. That's healthy. I like that spirit. Because many times the obstacles are based on the perception or misperception is that the only obstacles are out there, they're not here. And that's generally a misperception. That obstacles usually begin here. And if we're honest. And sometimes, when I'm asked to speak about community, sometimes I'll speak about Janadapi Sunichi Natoropi Suhishnana, Mani Namani Dana Kirtan Yasadapari, because that's generally it's a big obstacle when it's not a shared vision. That verse, that the devotee should feel themselves to be lower than the straw in the tree, more taller than the tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, ready to offer all respects to others and not willing and not inclined to expect respect for themselves. That's it has to be a shared vision. In Vaishnava communities, in Vaishnava Sangha, usually, of course, we read in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's a shared vision amongst Vaishnavas to feel that way. But it's a very elevated state of consciousness, and it's not something that we can artificially induce in ourselves, nor can we demand it of others. That's something, the first thing we have to learn is that we cannot demand others to adopt a certain mindset. And sometimes those are obstacles in communities, is that the best way for communities to evolve is usually by inspiration. The best way to take to Krishna consciousness and make progress on the path of Krishna consciousness is by inspiration. The best way to seek out the association of devotees and to relish the association of devotees is when there's inspiration. And if we try to legislate certain rules or laws on people's lives who are not inclined, then it's not very effective. You can't, first of all, you can't even legislate faith, what to speak of. It's not something that we can actually hope for. To legislate faith in somebody's heart is something that has to be awakened within the heart. Nityasiddha Krishna Prema Sachika Bunoi Shabhanadi Suti Kori Udoi. That faith, that love for Krishna is there within the heart, but it has to be brought out. And Papa would give the example that fire is there in wood, and if you want to bring out the wood and fire, it requires a catalyst, fire. And when you put fire against wood, the fire in the wood that is there, the potential for the fire, which is brought out by the catalyst of the fire, and then comes out that natural inclination to love somebody becomes drawn towards Krishna in the association of devotees who've inspired it. So anyways, that's why I was inquiring about community, if that was your purpose for organizing this. It's just a good purpose. It's a good purpose, it's healthy, and I'm glad that you saw that an obstacle is with yourself. That's healthy. It's a healthy way to start. It's a good example to set. Proud of you. And now if you could teach that to others by your example. In fact, Prabhupada even says that in there's a verse I oftentimes quote from Bhagavatam, 5th canto, Prahlad Maharaj's prayers to Lord Nrsingadev, where he says, let there be all auspiciousness throughout the whole universe. He said, may all envious people become pacified, and may everybody's minds and hearts become calm by practicing bhakti yoga, because only by practicing bhakti yoga will they be able to think of others' welfare. And then he says that Prahlad Maharaj says, therefore let us all engage in the service of Krishna and always absorb our minds and thoughts of him. And Prabhupada says in the commentary to that verse that a Vaishnava is somebody who is non-envious, and he says the symptom of a non-envious Vaishnava is that he's liberal in his social dealings with others. He's liberal. As Prabhupada was very liberal with us. Very liberal. He was liberal, but then strict. But he could be strict. He's liberal in his social dealings with us, but he's strict with himself. And therefore, because he's strict with himself, others see the benefits of being strict with himself, and they think, yeah, maybe I should try to become strict too. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also says this in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, when he talks about the Vaishnavas relishing the association with each other. he said that I see that you're giving up sense gratification. I'd like to give up sense gratification too. It's this verse in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, 3rd canto. What is it? Anyways, I can't remember the verse. Prabhupada says that he's strict with himself, but he's liberal in his social dealings with others. Liberal meaning because he doesn't try to force them, to mold them, to accept. Prabhupada, even in the early days, right here in 2nd Avenue, you know, he would, you know, we all know the stories. I'm sure we've heard the histories of 2nd Avenue, how Prabhupada got the devotees to, motivated the devotees to do things. Everybody, he talked to all the devotees in the early days. What they'll tell you is that the reason why we surrendered is because Prabhupada walked his talk. Right? Prabhupada was so genuine. Prabhupada was just like, everything he asked us to do, wasn't with him hardly doing it himself. And because Prabhupada was so genuine, devotees became inspired to do as he was doing. And Prabhupada would oftentimes emphasize the point, Yena Tena Pakarina Mana Krishna Niveshayat. He would quote this verse by Rupa Goswami. He says, it is the duty of the spiritual master to somehow or other to get his disciples to think of Krishna. All the rules and regulations will come later. Right? He used to answer that. So sometimes the Indian people used to challenge Prabhupada. How come I never hear your disciples pronouncing Sanskrit properly? Or how come their behavior wasn't such, they could see certain contradictions in their behavior. And Prabhupada would say, Yena Tena Pakarina Mana Krishna Veshya. It is the duty of the spiritual master to somehow or other get his disciples to think of Krishna. And then all the rules and regulations will come. It's not like they won't come. We should use that as, okay, Prabhupada was not in favor of rules and regulations. But we know Prabhupada definitely was in favor of rules and regulations. But he wanted to make sure that the rules and regulations didn't come first and everybody forgot what they were for. The rules and regulations, that's the cause of the fall down, according to Rupa Goswami and Upadeshamrita. The falls will follow the rules and regulations without understanding the purpose behind them. Well, first and foremost was to get them to think of Krishna, and by getting them to think of Krishna, then gradually you introduced rules and regulations, and as we know, Smartavyam, Prabhupada would also quote this verse, Smartavyam Satatam Vishnor, Vismartavyam Najato Jit, Savaviri Nishedasya Etiyo Eva Kinkara. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. All the vidhis, all the prescribed activities of the scriptures, all the nishedas, which are the prohibited activities, are meant to serve these two principles. Sarva vidhi nisheda shura etiyo eva kinkara. All the vidhis and the nishedas are meant to be subordinate to remembering Krishna. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a very wonderful commentary on this verse. He says, what is it? Smartavyam Satatam Vishnu. Oh, he gives a commentary on the word Satatam. Generally, when you think of the word Satatam, what does it mean? Always, right? Like Satatam Kirtayanto Mam Yitantos Charat Vidapita. Krishna says Satatam Kirtayan. Devotees are always chanting my glories. That's what it means. Literal translation. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that in this verse there's a different meaning. He says it in this verse, and I'll explain why he explains there's a different meaning. He says because Sava Vidhi Nisheda Shur, all the rules and all the prohibitions are meant to serve these two principles. And he says that if somebody is always remembering Krishna, then why in the world does he have to be worried about the prohibition?
Sorry about that.
One of the prohibitions is to turn off your phone before you...
I'm not really a phone person, but I'll figure out how to do it. Ramroy was saying, "Where is Maharaj?" I think he found out I disappeared to come to see you somewhere.
Huh? Oh, that's from our brother.
Ramroy was saying, "Where is Maharaj?" I just disappeared. So then I guess he figured out I must have gone to see Maharaj somewhere.
Uh-huh. So you just disappeared without announcing your departure to anybody?
Well, I told somebody. I didn't tell Ramroy.
And you're supposed to be on Harinam right now.
Well, no, it's till 7:30.
Sarva Vidina Sedasya. Svartalyam Satata Vishnu. Where was I? Okay. Always. He says that always, for those who are always remembering Krishna, then why do they have to be concerned about what the prohibitions are? They're always remembering Krishna. If you're always remembering Krishna, you have to really, I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't be doing that, I should. Why do you think about it? If you're always remembering Krishna, why would you be thinking about things that you shouldn't be doing? You're not doing it because you're always remembering Krishna. It's the goal. So he says, obviously this verse is for those who aren't always remembering Krishna, because it includes the Nishedas. The what is that verse? Oftentimes quote, 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. It's Maharaj Parikshit. He says that the Paramahanksas who accepted Krishna within the core of their heart, they're always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. And he says they're always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, and they're always attached to speaking only about him. And he says that their attachments to speaking only about Krishna are just like the materialist attachment who are spontaneously attached to speaking only about women and sex. He uses that example. It's right there, 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. And spontaneously, people, because the verse is about what's in the core of their hearts. So if a person has in the core of their heart, they're always meditating on these things, it doesn't take much of a catalyst to bring out the opportunity to speak about those things, right? Like an example I usually give is before I came to Krishna consciousness, I was a laborer. I used to build houses, and I worked with other laborers, and their mentality was definitely, you knew what their hearts were absorbed in, because as soon as somebody would walk by that would stimulate their senses, immediately it was the topic of discussion. Did you see that? It was very spontaneous. Didn't have to practice. It was very spontaneous, because what's there in the heart, the little stimulus immediately brings it out. So Sukadeva Goswami uses the same analogy, that for those who are always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, then whatever they see Krishna. And it stimulates them to remember Krishna, to speak about Krishna, because Krishna, the Paramahanksas have accepted Krishna within the core of their hearts. Prabhupada uses the analogy that just like a parent who loves their child, when they see the shoe of the child, they don't see a shoe, because they see their child. It's the child's shoe. The parent hears the voice of the child. It's not just the voice. They see their child. We see the toy of the child. Probably uses these three: shoe, the toy, and the voice. See the toy of the child, immediately they see the child. So why? Because in their hearts, they're always thinking of the child. So the Paramahanksas, they're always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. So why do they have to think? Those who are always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, why do they have to worry about what are the prohibited activities? Of course, if they're teachers, they have to teach by their example by avoiding those activities which are prohibited because others have to see that. But they do that for the sake of teaching. It's not because they have to restrain themselves from these activities. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, since this verse is not for Paramahamsas, those who are always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, because if it was, then the recommendation of the Nishedas would not even be brought up. He says the word satatam in this verse has a different meaning. It doesn't mean always, it means every day. Every day. Why? Because for those who are sadhakas, who are trying to remember Krishna, every day they have to do something which helps them to remember Krishna. The prescribed activity is every day. When Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Atachitam sagma athastam nashiknosi mai stiram abhyasa yugena tato mami chaptam dhananjaya. He says, if you cannot think of me all the time, then follow these regulative principles of bhakti yoga, and this way cultivate the desire to attain me. So Krishna is understanding, giving a concession. You can't think of me always. Then follow the regulative principles of bhakti yoga. In this way, cultivate the desire to attain me. And when he says follow the regulative principles of bhakti yoga, Krishna is not telling Arjuna, no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling and intoxication. This is not the regulative principles that Krishna is telling Arjuna. He's telling Arjuna that you have to, the regulative principles is regulate your life around remembering me. Okay? Every day. Every day we have to do something that helps us to remember Krishna. This is satatam for the sadhaka, satatam. And when we talk about community, I guess we can bring in that element, that community, of course, has many facets of community. We can discuss many, it's a very broad discussion. But usually, community. But usually what brings together a community, a Krishna conscious community, is what Srila Prabhupada intended, that for a Krishna conscious community, if you wanted to have a Krishna conscious community with a higher ideals, then what brings the community together is discussing topics of Srimad Bhagavatam together. In fact, I'm going to look up that verse. What is it from the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam? Forgive me, this may take me a second, because it's a very good verse. 11th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. Where is it? Where's Srimad Bhagavatam? Oh, there you are. 11th canto. Chapter 3, I believe. I'm getting here, I'm close. Very long purports in the 11th canto. Paraspat, what is it, Paraspat? I have a bad memory. Forgive me. I'm sorry, I can't find it. Why? I know it's here. It's instructions of King Nemi. So it has to be in this section.
Maybe 11:3:30.
You know the verse I'm talking about?
I think it's Paraspara.
Yes, that's the verse.
I think it's 11:3:30.
3:30. I'm looking at 20s.
Wow.
Very good.
Yeah,
Vyakta Vyakta Sanatana?
No. 30. No, 26. This is moving very slow. This is one thing about technology. Of course, it's supposed to be fast, but if I had a book, I would have opened up to it a long time ago. Yes, here it is. Parasparanu Katan. Bhavanam Bhagavad Yasha. Mitta Ratir Mittas Tushtir. Nivritir Mitta Atmana. One should learn how to associate with the devotees of the Lord by gathering with them to chant the glories of the Lord. This process is most purifying. As devotees thus develop their loving friendship, they feel mutual happiness and satisfaction. And by thus encouraging one another, they are able to give up material sense gratification, which is the cause of suffering. Purport. According to Niranjana Swami, those who are advanced in Krishna consciousness should not envy one another or quarrel among themselves. I guess it's for those who are advanced in Krishna consciousness. No judgment here. Giving up all such mundane feelings, they should gather together and chant the glories of the Supreme Lord for mutual purification. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has pointed out that glorification of the Supreme Lord is especially potent when performed in the association of pure devotees. When devotees engage in Sankirtan, chanting the glories of the Lord together, they experience the highest transcendental bliss and satisfaction. Thus they encourage one another to give up material sense gratification, which is based on illicit sexual connections with women. One devotee will say to another, "Oh, you have given up sense gratification? Starting today, I shall also give it up." Sangha. One should learn to increase one's love for the devotees, to satisfy them, and to give up sense objects unfavorable to serving Krishna. And one should learn to view the entire universe as paraphernalia for the Lord's service. By engaging the objects of the senses in Krishna's service, one automatically becomes detached from them. And as one passes one's days in the association of the Lord's devotees, one's transcendental ecstasy increases more and more through discussions about the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, one who wants to be free from the harassment of Maya in the form of sense gratification must constantly associate with pure devotees of the Lord who have no engagement other than chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord and carrying out his mission on earth. Anyways, his point here is that this is actually instructions for a disciple, how he should serve his spiritual master. This was the instructions that were given by the sage, was it Prabhupada, to King Nimi. One should learn how to associate with devotees of the Lord by gathering with them to chant the glories of the Lord. This process is most purifying. As devotees thus develop their loving friendship, they feel mutual happiness and satisfaction. And by thus encouraging one another, they are able to give up material sense gratification, which is the cause of all suffering. There's another very good reference about friendship amongst devotees. And this is given by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And as we know, the well-known verse of Upadesha Amrita, Dadati Pratigrinati Huyamakyati Pritchati Bojayate Chala Sadviram Priti Lakshanam, where he describes that the symptoms of friendship between one devotee and another, offering gifts, Charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, acquiring confidentially, accepting prasad, and offering prasadam are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. And in the Sri Bhakti Loka, I think I can probably discuss this here. It's very interesting what Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur specifically describes as what does it mean to associate. It's a very, when you think about the essence of what brings devotees together. And we always use the word, how many times have we used it in the course of our dialogue, either in speaking to devotees or speaking with one another, about association. What does it mean to associate with devotees? Sometimes devotees, they don't really fully comprehend what is association, what is not association. And that's exactly what Bhakti Vinod Thakur says. He answers the question, what is association and giving up association? And he's speaking about this from the verse of Upadeshamrita, where Rupa Goswami describes the 6 pitfalls. One of them, and he says that one has to give up the association of non-devotees, if he wants to make progress in spiritual life. And sometimes when devotees hear that, give up, they think it sounds pretty sectarian, or it sounds pretty harsh, it sounds impossible. That's probably the more common reaction I hear. How do you give up the association of non-devotees? And it's like, especially for householders, how does a household give up the association of non-devotees? And one of the biggest complaints I hear, actually, from householders is that I'm always surrounded by non-devotees. I'm influenced by it. How can I keep my head above water? I get to the temple, once a week, and for an hour, and the rest of the time I'm working, I'm dealing with these people, I'm dealing with those people, and and sometimes I've got to go out to dinner with my clients. I've got to sit and if I eat vegetarian food in front of them, they think I'm not with them. How am I ever going to close the sale? I got to put a glass of wine in front of me, and it's like so many. You hear so many different, like I said, obstacles. I said, don't tell me there's no obstacles. There's obstacles, and devotees they outline a whole gamut of obstacles that they have to confront in their day-to-day life. And yet, Rupa Goswami says that one of the pitfalls that will cause us to fall is if we associate with non-devotees. What hope? What hope do I have? I spend 90% of my life with non-devotees. And they begin to think that, I forget it. Of course, sometimes devotees get into that all or nothing mentality too, which is very dangerous. That if I can't do it all, then better I don't do any of it, because I'm just a hypocrite. And not only that, we'll find so many other excuses. Maya's very strong. She'll give us dozens of excuses for ascribing to the all or nothing mentality. Nothing is it's the path of least resistance. Better nothing, because all is impossible. So, anyways, Bhakti Vinod Thakur talks about what is association, specifically in reference to giving up the association and giving up association. Many people have doubts about this, he says. Doubts may be there because if just by coming close to a materialist or material object is considered associating with them, there's no way to give up association. As long as the material body is there, how can one give up the proximity of these things? How can a Grihastha Vaishnava give up family members? One cannot give up the association of deceitful persons, even if they are renunciates. One will have to come across materialists in one's life, whether one is a Grihastha or a renunciate. Therefore, the limit for giving up the association of materialists is prescribed in Sri Upadeshamrita as follows. Dadati pratigrinati guyamakyati prichati. Bhunte bhojayate chaiva sad vidham pitti lakshanam. He quotes this verse, offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasadam and offering prasadam are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. O sadhakas! Bhaktivinoda Thakur, if you ever read Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he always says, O sadhakas. Because he's speaking to, he knows he's not speaking to liberated souls, he's speaking to sadhakas, people who are performing sadhana. At least not much. Some element of sadhana is expected by a sadhaka. Which is, we said before, smartavyam satatam vishnor, vismartavyam jatachit, sava vidhi nisedasya eti yogi kunkara. Sadhaka is, every day he's doing something in his effort to think of Krishna. Sometimes devotees can't have a full morning program, they can't, they have chanting their rounds and not the best environment, and many things, obstacles are there. So a sadhaka is somebody who tries to at least mold his day around some effort to remember Krishna. Let's define it in that way. O sadhakas, one must accept proximity with both bad and good people as one passes his life. This equally applies to householders and renunciants. Proximity must be there. Nevertheless, one should not engage in bad association. So, here, he's starting to make some distinction. There's a difference between proximity and association. Making this point very clear. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says right in one of his instructions, I can't remember, it's in Amritavani. He says if association is simply by being in the same room together, then he says specifically this is not association. He makes the point, association means there's some exchange. And here Bhaktivinoda Thakur is also making the point between proximity and association. Just like sometimes devotees, I've seen it, devotees sometimes say, they try to do business together. They think if we do business together with devotees, then I'm associating with devotees all the time. But sometimes when devotees do business together, they're the worst association for you. The worst. Because although they're physically in the same room together, they're physically sitting in the same office together, they're physically doing, actively doing things together, but actually there's no real association. Because the business becomes the center of their physical proximity, and the association sometimes is on the back burner. Because he makes a difference between physical proximity and association. So what is the difference? He says, proximity must be there, nevertheless one should not engage in bad association. Giving in charity, accepting charity, revealing one's mind, hearing one's mind, accepting foods, and giving foods, if done with piti, with love. These are called sangha, or association. Giving some foodstuffs to a hungry person and accepting some charity from a pious man is done out of duty, not out of love. Even if they are materialists, this type of engagement is not considered association. But if they are pure devotees, then such activities are performed out of love. When acts are performed out of love, then it is association. Therefore, giving charity to pure devotees and accepting items or wealth from them becomes satsanga. Giving charity to a materialist or accepting charity from one, if done out of love, becomes asatsanga. Now, sometimes devotees hear this and they can't wrap their mind around it because they think, well, we're supposed to love everybody. Right? It's one of the characteristics. Devotees supposed to, but that's a very advanced stage to be able to love everybody. We're supposed to love everybody, but we find ourselves that we can't even love devotees. What's this? And sometimes we think, I can love non-devotees, but I can't love the devotees. At least the non-devotees, I don't see all their faults. It's like, so it's to be able to love everybody. In fact, Prabhupada even says in the Ishopanishad, he says, to try to imitate the Mahabhagavat of the universal brotherhood, he says, is the cause of fall down. He says, we can't love. This platform of universal brotherhood is the platform of the Mahabhagavat devotee. Because he sees everybody serving Krishna except himself. We try to imitate the Mahabhagavat, forget it. Prabhupada says, you'll fall down. Even a Majjhima, a Majjhima Bhakta makes distinctions. He has to. Even Majjhima Bhakta, he worships the Lord. He makes friends with devotees. He is compassionate to those who are misled. And he avoids the atheists. So he makes distinctions. So, therefore, to love everybody, we have to be careful. Just like Prabhupada says, he gave one lecture, he says, yes, we should not think that we can love everybody. He says, just like if one sees a tiger and says, oh, let me love the tiger and embrace it. Prabhupada used that example. Okay, I love the tiger. We cannot imitate. Maybe Lord Chaitanya could make the tigers and the deer dance with one another, embrace one another, kiss one another. And Prabhupada even said that when he said that in the Parama Karuna. He says, Lord Chaitanya, he says he could make the tigers and deers, he says he could make them embrace one another. He says, we should not try to imitate, but at least we should try to approach the human beings. At least the human beings we should make the effort. Tigers and deers, no. In fact, one of my favorite quotes, but I'll get back to this association and non-association. I'm sorry, I need to go off. But it's a little tangent, but it's because it was in Second Avenue. It's so nice. So nice. Second Avenue, it was in February 1966. Prabhupada said, February 1966. What's another name for Parama Karuna? The bhajan? Shishi Gaur-Nityananda Daya? Yeah, yes, Gaur-Nityananda Daya. I just found it. Prabhupada says here in his diary, 3rd of February 1966. He says, today there was a very nice demonstration of tape record Sankirtan by me. I love this. Because your father gave this to me. This quote. When he got Bali Mardan's, he was holding on to Prabhupada's journal. He had it in his possession. He finally decided, I think I should surrender it to the archives. And I went to the archives, and your father said, hey, Maharaj, look what I got. And he pulled out the diary. He showed it to me. I opened it up, and I looked at it. And I found this quote, and I immediately wrote it down. I said, Ranjit Prabhu, listen to this. Today there was a very nice demonstration of tape record Sankirtan by me. It is all grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Haridas Thakur said that the transcendental sound of Harinam would even purify the heart of birds and beasts. Today, this statement of Thakur Haridas is corroborated. these Americans cannot understand even a word's meaning of the Sankirtan, and yet they were so much attracted. It is all Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's power. There's no credit for me. What is Prabhupada saying? It's right there in his diary. I saw it in black and white. It's right there, handwritten right in his diary. That's how I knew it. He said, Haridas statements that even the animals and beasts will be birds and beasts will be attracted. But today it is corroborated. These Americans. So, Prabhupada had spiritual vision. I'm sure you didn't show anybody his diary entry back then. So anyways, what is association, what is not association? Let's get back to that. So, as we were saying, that we say it is, what time is it?
13 after 8.
What time should I stop? Soon, right? I'm almost finished anyways. I'm almost finished.
We can follow 20 minutes.
Okay. So we stopped with, yes, we're talking about embrace the tiger. We should not imitate. We should not imitate the Mahabhagavata. And in terms of being friendly towards everybody. So, first is to learn how to be friendly in the association of devotees. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, association is when there's priti, when there's affection, love. What is love? Tadati pratagrinati gunyamagyati prichati. What is love? Love means, sometimes when people hear this verse, they think love is, I give a gift and I accept a gift. But that's not love. If I give a gift and expect to accept something in return, that's business. It's a mercantile relationship. Like in English, the expression they use, I don't know, maybe for those who are Russian background, do they have the expression comparable to, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours? Right? So it's not pretty. Love in the association of Vaishnavas means I'm giving this to you because I love you. And I love you means that because there's some affection, it's because you have done so, either you have done so much for me without expecting anything in return, and because of that, I love you. So because you've done so much for me without expecting anything in return, I want to reciprocate that love, and I want to give you something. And I don't expect anything in return because you taught me what it means to love, because you loved me. So I want to reciprocate. I want to give you something. So that's love. When you give, when they don't expect, Rupa Goswami says that the criteria of love is Anyabalasata Sunya Gyanakamani Navritam. That's in relationship to Krishna, which is that you please Krishna as Krishna desires favorably, and you don't expect karma, jnana, the results of karma. You don't want fruit of gain. You don't want relief from suffering. You just want to give Krishna as Krishna desires, to please him. So same thing, a loving association of devotees is that when there's priti, when there's love, that means we want to please the devotees. And what is the reciprocation? We want to please the devotee, and the devotee is thinking, yes, I don't expect anything. I never did expect anything. But because you've offered something out of love, I want to reciprocate with you. How do I reciprocate with you? I accept it. That's how I reciprocate, because it was offered with love. That's what Krishna says. Patam pushpam balam toyam. He's teaching by his own example. If you offer me something with love, I want it. I want to reciprocate. We oftentimes tell that story about Durvasa Muni. It's a perfect example. Durvasa Muni and Maharaj Ambarish. When Durvasa Muni wanted to know why Krishna wouldn't protect him, when he went to take shelter of him, Krishna explained to Durvasa Muni, he said, you're coming to me for protection, but I can't protect you. And Durvasa Muni says, what do you mean you can't protect me? You invoked the Sudarshan Chakra, and if I go to you and you don't protect me, then who will protect me? Certainly. You must have a heart when you see somebody suffering. And Krishna says, no, I don't have a heart. And he explains why. Why he doesn't have a heart. This is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary to these verses. Explains why he doesn't have a heart. He says, I don't have a heart because the devotees are always in my heart and I'm always in the heart of the devotee. The devotee is only thinking of me, always thinking of me. I don't think of anyone but him. And he says that I'm completely under the control of my devotee. Because the devotee is taking me, he only wants to please me within the core of his heart. And therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur expands a little bit, and he says what Krishna tells Durvasa Muni is, he said that my devotee, he serves me, and I want to give him something in return for all his service. He takes me into the core of his heart, and he always renders such nice service to me there. But I can't offer him anything that he wants. I try to offer him something, but he doesn't want it. It won't satisfy him. He doesn't want wealth. He doesn't want position. He doesn't want prestige. These things won't satisfy his heart. So I can't give anything to him that he wants. But I want to give him something. I want to give him, so what can I give him of some value? I gave him, I reached into the treasure house that I have, and I picked out the most valuable thing that I have. I gave him my heart. He has my heart. You're asking me to have a heart? I'm telling you, I don't have it. You want my heart? You go to Maharaj Ambarish. He's got it. My heart will do it. Feel for your suffering. But he has my heart. And if you want me to think about you, well, he's got my mind too, because I'm always thinking about him. And he makes the point. He makes that very point that's Krishna's loving dealings. He likes to accept. But something is offered with love. He wants to reciprocate. So when devotee offers something with love without expecting anything in return, then naturally we want to reciprocate. We want to give out of love. And therefore Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, when there's priti, when there's love, there's association. Therefore he says, don't reveal your mind. Don't reveal your mind to non-devotee. He said, revealing your mind should be done with devotees. He says, giving food. Yes, you may give food out of duty. You may accept a gift from a pious person out of duty. But priti, loving exchanges, are meant to be experienced with devotees. When there's love, it's association. So when we relish the association of devotees, giving and exchanging, machchita makata prana bodhiyata parasparam katiyantaschamam nityas tushanti charamaticha. When devotees are actually having association in this way, exchanging about Krishna, hearing about Krishna, revealing one's mind in confidence about Krishna, and obstacles on the path of devotional service, revealing one's mind, confidence. It's a loving exchange when it's between devotees. So that's the point he's making here, and I just want to finish. Excuse me. Yes, I just want to finish this point, and then we'll leave a little time for questions. He says, if one can behave in this way while giving in charity, accepting charity, speaking confidentially, hearing confidentially, feeding and accepting food with one's wife, children, servants, maidservants, strangers, and whoever else one meets, there will be no unholy association, only good association. There's no hope of achieving devotion to Krishna until one gives up unholy association in this way. A renunciate Vaishnava should accept whatever alms he receives by madhukari or begging at the house of an honest householder with the above-mentioned consideration. He should always remember the difference between gross begging and madhukari. There's more things here. Oh, that's almost done. A Grihastha Vaishnava should accept prasad, grains and drinks in the house of another Grihastha who has pure character. One should always be cautious about taking prasad in the house of a non-devotee and one with bad character. There is no need to speak further about this. Due to their pious activities, those who have developed faith in devotional service have a little intelligence by the mercy of Krishna. Due to that intelligence, they can easily understand the essence of the Acharya's instructions. Therefore, only a few words are needed to instruct them. Those who have no pious credits have no faith. Even if they are given volumes of instruction, they will not understand a thing. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami has given only a few words of instruction in Sri Upadeshamrita. So, if we want association, then we should know what is association, what is not association. It's not physical proximity. It's not even exchanging, if we are very careful and understand that, yes, and sometimes if we're in the physical proximity of non-devotees, we have to have these types of exchanges. But when a devotee learns how to have loving exchanges with devotees, they're so relishable that in the association of non-devotees, his mind is always absorbed and hankering for the association of devotees. This is how relishable it should be to be in the association of devotees. That in the association of non-devotees, we do things as a matter of duty. Yes, in the execution of my work, execution of my duties, execution of dealing with so many people, I have duties I have to perform, and certainly I do them. But internally in my mind, I'm conscious that what I really relish is being in the association of devotees. And if I really relish being in the association of devotees, there has to be a foundation for that relishing. There has to be some foundation. What is it that brings devotees together to relish each other's association? If we want community, we have to build it on the right foundation. That's how to have community. And as I said, I can't talk, all the other elements of community are beyond the scope of a 1-hour presentation. I'm not a magician who can discuss all the elements of community and community development and the things. But if you have association, and if you relish each other's association, it's unbelievable the things that will come out for the development of community, the ideas that will come out, that will be generated in a very positive spirit, because there's faith, there's trust, there's love, and there's a common goal. And that's what Prabhupada's, it's one of his goals. He established the Krishna consciousness movement on. So, I don't know. Maybe I've talked long enough. Anybody have any questions? Challenges? Doubts? Yes.
Maharaj, it's very clear what's stated in the Shastra, what's stated by Srila Prabhupada, what's stated by the Acharyas, who we should associate with, who not to associate with. And one of the things that really stuck with me, hearing from Sri Kirti Prabhu, he spent so much time with Prabhupada in his association, is he would say that it took me years or even decades to realize that things he said to me while we were in the same space, he was actually speaking to me. Like that was actually an instruction for me. And I feel like that's often happens, when we read Prabhupada's books, these things are very clear. But for example, in this, what we're talking about now, association, devotees will sometimes often have a mentality of, oh, well, I don't actually need the association of devotees. Or, oh, it's okay, I can kind of hang out with whoever, and it won't affect me. So we have this mentality of, I'm beyond this, or I'm above this, or this doesn't apply to me. So my question is, how do we safeguard against this mentality?
Forgive me, but the only way to safeguard against the mentality is by having good association. No man is an island unto himself, as the expression goes. As soon as we think that, I can do it on my own, I don't need, then Prabhupada said, take a piece of straw, it's very easy to break, but if you cluster it together in a bunch, it's very difficult to break it. So as soon as we fall into that mentality of thinking that I don't need association, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. And Prabhupada has directly said right in the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 9th chapter, 12th verse, I think it is. Says anyone who thinks he can advance outside the association of devotees is living in an hallucination. Of course, Prabhupada has said other things. In the Bhagavad Gita, he says that for those who find it difficult in association with devotees, and he says that, I think it was in the verse, I can't remember which verse it was, in the Bhagavad Gita. Says then let them associate with the spiritual master. He said, if they find it difficult and can't associate with the society, then they can make progress in this way. But it's never, if you, no association. So the fact is that we all depend on association, and we all need it in some way. And many times devotees who really have come to the conclusion that they don't need it is because they've had they're frustrated, because they didn't know how to associate, or maybe they were with people who didn't know how to associate with them well, and once burned, twice shy. They begin to think that I've had so many bad experiences in the physical proximity with other people that I'm not ready to try it again. And but the point is that if we really want association, we pray for it. Krishna knows our heart, and if we really know that it's required and sincerely pray for it, all obstacles can be overcome. And I always emphasize to the devotees also that if you want to have a real trusting, faithful relationship with another devotee, it takes some effort. You can't just expect somebody just all of a sudden be your best friend, who you can depend on and rely on and reveal your mind in confidence. It really takes some effort on our part to cultivate that kind of a relationship. And and my experience is that the kind of relationship that I have with some of my godbrothers, I have that relationship because I learned from these principles to be with them without expecting anything in return, just because I could see in their dealings, their love for Prabhupada, that I just wanted to serve them. That's it. And sometimes it was very difficult to serve them with Shiva Maharaj. It was so difficult to serve. They had to do it in such a way that he didn't know I was serving him because he wouldn't let me. So I had to when I was there, I was in bad health one time. He took me to New Vrajadam. He took away my passport literally and put me in New Vrajadam and said, you don't go anywhere, you just stay here. And he nurtured me, he took care of me. I just felt like I had to reciprocate. I wanted to do something, but he didn't want anything. So I had to figure out how to serve him in such a way that I could get away with it. And then, you serve people because there's something you see something in them, so you cultivate that relationship. And then what begins to happen is you take the subordinate role. Sometimes we think, friends means we're supposed to be equal. You treat me, I'll treat you. But no, take the subordinate role. If he's really your friend, he won't abuse you if you take the subordinate role. If he's really your friend, he won't exploit you. That's a friend.
Like Krishna.
Huh?
Like Krishna.
Like Krishna. So it takes some cultivation, but we all need it. We all need it. If we don't realize we need it, it's very sad. Very sad. And unfortunately, many devotees will come and leave and be clueless about what does it mean to associate. Clueless. Because they came with the wrong reason. And Prabhupada even speaks about that right in his purports. Sometimes people come and expect that they want to get prestige, position, because they're in a religious institution. They never come and sometimes they can become purified. Hopefully, most of the time. But at least, if we can realize, I need it, and please, Krishna, you know what I've gone through, and help me to see somebody who I can associate with, and then if you have that one associate, even one person can open up such a relationship in your heart that you'll begin to see everybody else differently. Everybody else, right? This is just, everything's changed because the heart's been touched by some genuine, loving exchange. It's profound. Your whole perspective on the world, your whole perspective on everybody, just profound. Imagine what Prabhupada did by making these profound changes in everybody's vision of the world, by giving his heart. And if we think such devotees don't exist, that's unfortunate. I can tell you they do. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yes.
My question is on the topic, I would say international devotees. I don't know if there is such a term, but meaning that there are devotees from different backgrounds in different countries. And for example, I'm from Ukraine. There are a lot of people who are here from Ukraine, and we get to associate with devotees from United States. And I'm just going to be speaking from myself. It's my personal experience, not from all Russian Sangha here, but I've been associating for about probably 4 or 5 years here in the Lower East Side with American devotees, Russian devotees, but it seems like I've started to feel this tendency lately, and it's more of that it's been brought up to me. It wasn't like even my personal opinion because I've never kind of like noted that, but then later I thought about it and I was thinking, this does really make sense. And the thesis is that it's not easy, it's complicated to get in the circles close to American devotees. Americans have the tendency to be more close, not all, but a lot of Americans have the tendency to be more close. I wouldn't say introverts, because I consider myself an introvert when I'm at home alone, but it's like when Russians are more like open, it's like open, like ready, and like, hey, let's do this, let's have this kind of like exchange,
Until they get burned.
Exactly.
I live there.
Yes. I know who I'm asking, Maharaj, because you know the two sides of the coin. That's why I really wanna know your opinion. So and then it happens that you're trying to get association, but it's more like, okay, but you can stay up to this level. That's where you should be, and I am not letting you go any further. But for me personally, it's so much interesting to get. I have great relationships in Russian Sangha, but I want to also have relationships with devotees who are second generation, who can tell me more, and they seem to be like a lot of times they're close. They're not willing to accept you or, be, how do you say it, like, be as reciprocant, right, as I would want it to be, because I don't have those boundaries. Like, I'm ready. I want to associate. I want to know who you are, what do you think, but I on the other side, I want to say that I have friends like that from Americans too here, but it's just on the count of one arm of the fingers I can count. Most of them are a little bit like in this bubble, it's quite visible. So my question is Because you are. Is that why you went to Russia?
Is that your question?
You got tired of the
To get away from the Americans.
It wasn't me. I don't know. I'm sorry.
No, it's not why I went to Russia.
No, that's
You want to know why I went to Russia? It's a long story. But I was thinking as you were saying that, it's not the answer to your question, but I was thinking as you were saying that, it's funny. A lot of the Americans think the Russians the exact same thing.
Yes.
The Russians, why do they stay in their bubble? I hear it all the time. All the time. So there's some communication. I think some communication barrier that needs to be broken down. And I don't think it's just the language, because you speak really good English. It's not even Russian English. I mean, it's what I'm used to hearing. You know, so it's not language. I don't know. I do see that tendency. Definitely that tendency. But I think it's on both sides. It's on both sides. But it's. I want to answer your question. Your question was, is that why I went to?
It came out very spontaneously. I don't know why. You know, my question is like probably, and hearing from what you're saying, like how can I make myself better in a sense, or how can, you know, because the language barrier is not there for me personally. So maybe you can tell me how.
You know, I can tell you something, but I'll tell you what I do in the course of my travels. I try to help the American leaders to understand the Russian devotees. That's my contribution. And although, you know, because I really know that, you know, I can't say I understand everything. You know, I'm also, you know, when I'm there, devotees deal with me in a particular way because of who I am, and sometimes, you know, I know it's not always what you see is what you get. It's like, sometimes there's some differences in the understanding, but still, I feel that these barriers could easily be broken, and the American devotees would open up if they could see that there was a strong desire to associate with them and accepting them as they are. Then they could accept you as you are. I can't say I can speak for everybody, but I know for me, it's real easy. It's just real easy, you know, to do that, because I feel like a foreigner in America. Honestly speaking, when I come to America, I feel completely out of place. Because I'm just so used to being in that culture, and there are cultural differences, obviously. And when I went to Russia 30 years ago, when I started going, you know, I was just so accepted as I was. So naturally, I wanted to reciprocate, because people accepted me as I was. So therefore, because everything was based on that reciprocation, because people accepted me as I was, I naturally reciprocated in a way based on their acceptance of me. And I never was judgmental. When I saw the cultural differences, I just didn't consider them to be barriers whatsoever, because they're just cultural differences. And Prabhupada says there will be cultural differences wherever you go in the world. There'll be cultural differences, and he says Krishna consciousness has to be presented in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says has to be presented with the understanding that there are cultural differences. But Krishna consciousness breaks down the cultural barriers if there's Krishna consciousness. So we have to try to focus on exchanging as in the ways that I spoke about today. If that becomes the basis, then it can break down the cultural barriers. But if we try to bring the cultures together based upon external similarities or trappings, it's a quagmire. It's not so easy. But in like this exchange of Krishna consciousness, Americans and Russians, the Indians, the Peruvians, doesn't make any difference where they're from. Prabhupada even spoke about that. He showed us by his perfect example that he broke down all cultural barriers. And in fact, I was just with Yogeshwar Prabhu just before coming here. We were talking, met him in this place, and we're specifically speaking about that point. How expert Prabhupada was in breaking down these barriers. But I can't say that I have a particular formula that's a workable, true tested formula as to how to accept desire. If the desire is there, everything else will follow. If you really desire, then it will follow. You may not be able to, mold yourself in the association of all the American doers. You may not, it's just as I'm sure you find there are many devotees from Ukraine that, I see it all the time in Ukraine. Clashes between the Ukrainian devotees too. There'll be clash. Wherever there's false ego, there's clash.
And like, what if, let's say metaphorically, what if one door does not open? You knock there, you knock there, you knock there, you knock there, you show the effort, it does not open. Just give it up or try another door or
Try the window.
If you keep on trying and it doesn't open, then you can't. Again, as I began the whole presentation tonight by emphasizing the point: you can't legislate. You can't force somebody to, hey, look, accept me as I am. People just don't work that way. If you really want the door to open, and if it's somebody that you really see there's some value to have an open relationship, then you should try serving them in the ways that I suggest, and see if that doesn't open up some doors for you. Because it's magic. It's magic if we serve in the right consciousness. I want a relation. There's something you see in this devotee, and I really want to. I don't want anything from him. I just accept. I want to blossom in my Krishna consciousness in this devotee's association, and I see this devotee has something to give. Let me start by serving him, and by making it aware that I appreciate this devotee so much. Please let me do something for you that will help you in your service. And start. And then if you do that and still, what can be done? But if they're actually a devotee who has a little advancement, I'm sure that will open the door.
thank you.
Otherwise, there may be somebody that you really don't want a relationship with. If they can't see that, if they're so blind, then it's pretty kanishta. It's not majjhima, it's pretty kanishta. Is to not see that kind of effort that's being made.
Thank you so much.
Kind of not similar, but the same topic question. So we tend to group together, and we tend, Russian-speaking devotees, and we tend to gather together and build Russian Sangha and do event for Russians. Is there any downsides that we are doing it? Should we kind of try to break those barriers and go out and invite English-speaking people to our programs, start to finally do programs in English language, or it's at some point it's fine too to have the Russian Sangha, Russian community and stick to it? Or is this not really?
What's your experience?
We have really little experience here. We're just starting, I would say. We're fine now, but who knows? Maybe in a few years we would have different experience.
When Kishori and Kashishwar started to doing it, sorry for interruption, it's began to be fine now. That's very true. Before it was not fine. So they're definitely having showing a big effort in towards Russian.
Well, that's certainly a good start. But I would say, just in response to that, that if you're actually associating for the purpose, as we described tonight, actually relishing the discussions in Krishna consciousness, which are not sectarian in any way, which are open to anybody, and if you actually have a taste from that experience, it's infectious. And if devotees are actually relishing each other's association just because they happen to all be in, native Russian or Ukrainian bodies, but they're relishing Krishna consciousness, I believe Americans are looking for. And if it becomes infectious, that if you're enthused about something, then that's the best way to inspire others. When you're really enthused about doing something that's Krishna conscious, others will naturally be inspired to take part. If they don't, then you've done your best. But why not start with what you have? I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with starting with what you have. But don't base it on externals. Base it on Krishna consciousness. If you want to attract. And then I would say that's something to build on. Because there's something to begin building with. Everybody speaks Russian. I would say, I'll give you an example, perfect example. Although all the Russian-speaking devotees meet together, you should have all your discussions in English. Only English. Why? Why? And I'll tell you why. Prabhupada, when he took sannyas, you know the story? When Prabhupada took sannyas in Keshavaji Gaudiya Math, there was only the present were all the brahmacharis in the math, and everybody else there was some people. It wasn't a large gathering. There wasn't time to set out invitations, but Keshava Maharaj was there. Narayan Maharaj was there. I think there was only one. Babaji Maharaj, Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj. They're the only ones who spoke English. Prabhupada gave a lecture in English. In English to everybody there. Nobody understand. He spoke in English because he was instructed to bring Krishna consciousness to the English-speaking world. So if you want to attract the Americans, speak only in English.
Or let them speak Russian. So,
That was a joke, I have to.
it was a joke.
Я не говорю по-русски.
No, but there is a kind of, I feel there is no need. Like we find in our bubble speaking Russian, and we are not comfortable with English, and we're fine. And there might be a
Well then, if yes. Well, that means you don't really want to stay in your bubble.
But is there a problem to be in that bubble?
Well, I hear a problem right here. It wasn't it?
Oh, I am a problem.
No, I didn't present you as a problem. I presented you as somebody who has a problem with being in the bubble. I didn't present you as the problem, believe me. The problem could be over there. So you have to find what everybody wants to do. But if you really want to broaden your association, I assume everybody speaks English here. If those who haven't, you really, why have you been sitting for so long? I don't see anybody sitting in the corner translating, like I usually do, when somebody doesn't understand.
So I have new friends who are practicing Buddhism for many years, teaching practices.
Can you hear Maharaj?
I can.
Atheists?
Huh?
Are they considered atheists?
Atheists?
Yeah.
Are you asking that question in terms of that we should neglect them as we're supposed to neglect atheists?
Maybe, but not fully.
I wouldn't say they're atheists because they're probably not real Buddhists. It's hard to find real Buddhists. They got such a wishy-washy conception of Buddhism in America that I wouldn't label them as atheists. I would, at least I wouldn't. Yes.
Maharaj, you were in your class when you were describing that association, this priti is an element there, love. So, a scenario just came in my mind. What if you are not revealing your mind, but somebody else, say some associate of yours, in a distress, they want to reveal your mind to you.
You want to reveal their mind to you.
Yeah, and you respond out of compassion. You hear their problems and you try and help them. Would you consider that association?
For whom? For the person hearing or for the person revealing?
For the person hearing and offering advice out of compassion, or you want to help them out of love, or
Yes. I mean, would you say is that bad association for you if you're hearing somebody who's
yeah.
revealing their minds?
I mean, I know that other person to be pretty materialistic and not a devotee by any standards by far, but they come to you seeking advice and.
I would say that, if there's some relationship, then it's not association if you do it out of duty, compassion. It's not association. You won't become influenced if you do it out of duty.
Right.
It's compassion. We're supposed to have compassion to those who are non-devotees. That's preaching. It's to be compassionate to the non-devotees. That's our duty as a Vaishnava. Or as a aspiring Vaishnava, I should say. So there's no problem unless we get too much involved in their life.
Right.
And when it goes beyond duty, when you get too much involved in their life,
Right.
it can happen with a family member. You get too much involved with a family member who's not a devotee. How many times do devotees come and say how they're having difficulties with their family members? They get too involved in them, and they're not devotees, and how much of an adverse impact it has. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about family also, out of duty. The priti is reserved for devotees.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we should probably stop.
Yeah, we can do kirtan.
Kirtan,
Maybe short.
short. I'm supposed to do a program really tomorrow morning, so that's why I don't want to go too late.
10 minutes.
Hare
Niranjana Swami Maharaj ki
Jai.